we're going to get rocking with the leadership corner for Save the Sales negotiation. In case you did not know who this is, my name is Marcus Chan. I'm the founder of Bentley Consulting. I was in the previous session you're probably a part of. And just to elaborate a little bit more, I've been in outside sales and sales leadership for 14 plus years. I've only worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies in my entire career before I basically retired early, started my own business. Anything from B2B sales directly to leading a team of 1 or 2. Well, Daniel, so I actually sold Speedos at one point. So yeah, so at one point I sold Speedos. This was in college. I had to make some money, right? So I was selling Speedos at a Speedo store to pay for tuition. So yeah, but anyways, I've sold all types of things from that to large deals, etc. My last role, I was a corporate director leading a team of 110 plus employees over multiple states. We did 9 figures a year plus in revenue. So negotiate deal size, anything from small deals up to large deals, etc. So as you are jumping on, feel free to type in any questions you may have. I'm going to cover a couple of key things that I think are really key as leaders. So whether you are a leader or a future leader who will be leading teams, this will be something that's very applicable to you, right? And there's a couple of questions from before that I want to make sure I hit on. I think that these are critical from a leadership perspective, especially during today's time, right? So, for example, what are some tactics for team leads and frontline managers to assist their team in closing more business? Okay, and I think that's a great question. So, if you again, that question is really, hey, how can you best, if you are a leader, how can you best support your team in closing more deals, especially during a time like this? And, I have found, even whether it's a tough time like today, or even when it's in a good time, oftentimes one of the best ways to gain your team's trust is to show them how things are done, right? So, for example, right now, many sales teams lack confidence. They lack confidence in themselves. They lack confidence in their ability to close a deal. They lack confidence in being able to exceed their quota, right? And, whether you provide training for your team or not, one of the best ways to help lead them through this tough time is when you are jumping on sales calls, if it's group Zoom calls or whatever platform you use, is show them and lead them through how do you properly negotiate, right? And that can be for anything from running the sales call, the discovery portion, to the demo, what to pay if you're in SaaS, to the close at the very end. And when you show them and you lead your team through that, that builds a lot of confidence, not just the process, but also in you, right? That you are out there helping them be successful. And that's really, really, really important. I'll give you a really good example. In 2008, I had basically had a peer promotion. I was leading a team of 2 of my peers. And those peers, I was on a different team, and I was fortunate to have some pretty good sales success. And I was leading them, and the economy, if you sold during there, if you remember that time, the economy was terrible. People were like losing their homes. It was the recession was really starting to go underway. And there was no faith in a sales process or ability to sell at that time with that team, right? So it was really important, even though I had my own personal results, they needed some belief. That was really important for the sales team to understand. They needed belief. So it was really vital for me. Now, obviously, it wasn't via Zoom because I wasn't around back then, but I would go in the field with them to appointments, right, and run parts of the sales process that are weaker and to show them. And by leading parts of the process and closing deals as well during that time, that built massive confidence, right? And that's a very simple tactic that you can still apply today with group Zoom calls to help with building confidence in your sales team that deals can still be done. And that's absolutely vital, right? So if you're a leader and if you are not being present with your team, on these type of calls, right, from whether it's doing phone sessions with them, right, to, sales calls, you're missing out because that's a huge way to build trust very quickly, right? So that's a really key way, a key tactic to help them with, right? Another really great tactic with helping develop the team and sell during this time is making sure you don't fall away from fundamentals, right? So, and we mentioned this earlier, in times of stress like today, oftentimes it is when things go sideways, it's highly stressful, people forget the fundamentals, right? So making sure you're properly training, you're still doing training sessions via Zoom, whatever platform you have, you're still doing role play, you're still helping them master skills that's going to help them when they're in the field. That's really important, right? Because if you think about this, and they talk about mental health, especially during this time, at this time, more people are in their own way than ever. So you really want to make sure you help give them skills and tools to be successful. So there's a couple of really simple things you could do right now to help your team negotiate or to lead through these times and still learn how to negotiate effectively. Okay. Another really great question. And as you are jumping on, go ahead, type whatever questions you have in the box, or you can also jump on the camera and pull you on as well. So next question, I think is also a really great question. How can I drive urgency when I feel there's none, right? So how can I drive urgency when deals are stalling? And that's pretty common. You start seeing now, right? At the end of the day, if you think about this, whether it's COVID-19, the economy, et cetera, deal stalling is nothing new. That has not changed. It's just a different reasoning or different objection, right? But when you think about this, when you are pushing for a deal to close, right? Number one, you got to ask yourself, hey, did I do everything right up front? The proper discovery, the proper questions, the proper qualifications, et cetera, the proper pain, right? And then when you're going for that close, you're pushing for that close, and there doesn't seem to be urgency, did you do the process right? Right? Do you have enough stakeholders in play? Right? What type of stakeholders do you have in play? What's their personality type? If they're the meek passive type, they're not going to move the ball. Do you have a strong confident type within the sales process or sales cycle that can help you push that deal to the close? Right? And all those things are just fundamental things you should do anyways. But what you really want to think about now, from create urgency perspective, think about your solution. Okay, what problem does it solve? And what does it ultimately satisfy? What's the ultimate desire to satisfy? And when you think about any type of sales process, when someone is buying anything from a consumer to a business, there are ultimate things that end goals they want to achieve, right? How does your solution product help achieve that end goal, right? And that end goal, typically it could be stuff like, hey, they want to make more money. They want to save money. They want to eliminate pain. They want to speed something up. They want to reduce pain, right? So you want to think, what is the ultimate end goal that they have in place? That's really important, right? And how is your solution tied to it? Now, for example, some of you out there might be thinking, hey, you know what? What I have, what I offer doesn't help them make more money or whatever. Maybe you consider it an essential service, right? But what problems it solve, right? So if you think about this, if you have the end goal, what they want to accomplish, make more money, save money, whatever, and your product's right here, if the problem you're solving should be somewhere along here, right? And that means you need to focus on selling towards that. So here's a really good example, okay? So before I started my own business, one of the services my team sold was uniform service. We sold uniforms, right? And uniforms, for some people would buy, we want to rent uniforms from the company I was at because it helped their employees look good. All right. And if you didn't sell properly, like times like this, people cut services like that. Okay. But if by selling the way it would be sold, hey, when employees get uniforms, they feel good, they look better, which helps you get more business, which makes me make more money. So when you understand how that connects together, that's the focus point with your prospect. How are you aligning your solution with solving a problem and also helping them achieve an end goal? And that helps create urgency with that deal, right? And obviously, there's other tactics you can use, but ideally, you're not going towards, you're not going towards things like providing discounts and incentives unless you really need to, right? You use it as a last piece, as a negotiating tactic to help push you over the edge. You don't want that to be a go-to because that's only going to hurt you. Okay, so that's really from terms of how do you drive urgency as part of the sales process, okay? And as people are jumping on, go ahead, type any questions you got right in the chat box, and I'll make sure we answer them. So, okay, let's see. Let me pause for a second. Was there any questions on that piece right there? For those that are on right now, just go ahead and type yes if that makes sense. If that makes sense, just type in yes. Hit the chat box, type in yes. I want to make sure that makes sense. Beautiful. Okay, beautiful. All right. So, okay. Next question. Here's another great question, right? So, how can we avoid falling victim to the COVID impact in an organization, right? Which is like, discounts, large incentives, etc. Okay. And this is where it's really, really important as a leader. You need to really instill confidence in your team. Right, they need to be injected with confidence consistently, because otherwise it's very easy for them to just want to fall prey to it, right? And I mentioned earlier, if you were part of the first panel, if your go-to to get deals is to give discounts, that's going to hurt them. Okay, so you really want to think, okay, you want to tie back, hey, listen, are we giving the team the tools they need to be successful, right? The proper training, etc. Are you riding with the team? Are you instilling confidence, right? And what you want to look for are ways to help your team get some wins, right? One of the best and fastest ways to instill confidence is a little bit of progress, okay? And what that means is, like, even if you are just, if you're working through a negotiation and you're able to get a little bit of a win, right? Maybe an extra product add-on or something, right? That little win needs to be celebrated and needs to be vocalized so your team can see that, right? That helps build confidence in the team, in addition to the fundamentals, right? So when you're looking at trying to minimize it, it also depends on your expectations, okay? And what I mean by that is, if you are a leader that is constantly thinking to themselves, hey, you know what? Let's just get a discount, get the deal. Let's give a discount, get the deal. Let's give a discount, get the deal. Your team will become trained to that. All right. Your team will become trained to that. Right. I found one of the fastest ways to achieve quota, exceed quota, was I simply had my teams maintain a high price. Right. And not because we were being greedy by any means. Right. But because simply I believe my team is worth it. Right. And when your team believes that they are worth it, their mind shifts. Right. And it may take a little bit of work to get them to that point. Right. So, for example, let's just say, maybe you're falling prey to it as well. Maybe your team is as well. Okay. A really great way to instill some confidence in your team is to go out and interview some of your top current customers, getting some testimonials and hear about how awesome, amazing your product or service is helping them with the business. Right. And even though maybe your team has forgotten, when they get to see some of these things, whether it's an interview or it's a quote or a reference letter, that's very powerful in indoctrinating into your team that, hey, you know what? We still have people that are willing to pay our prices and do what we want, right? Even during this time, okay? And that's a very powerful way of shifting the mindset, all right? And it's really, if you know, it's all about mindset here, right? And it applies to anything, right? Even with, getting jobs, right? If you're looking for a job right now, right? Maybe look for the next leadership role. It might be tempting to take that next role because, you're in a desperate situation, but maybe it's a lower base salary and compound that you're used to, right? And maybe if you have to take it, you have to take it. But if you're able to hold on for longer, having that mindset of getting what you're worth is very powerful. I'll give you a really good example, right? So one of my clients, right, she was transitioning roles, right? And during this whole time, coaching her through how to properly interview, do all these things, she was able to get 3 different job offers from 3 great companies as a district sales manager, with a 250K, OTE plan, right? With a very high 6-figure base, right? Now, it wasn't easy to get to those points, but because she held true to her worth, right? She was able to get more money and get more of a signing bonus and everything else as a result. So it's purely mindset, and that goes to leading your team as well. Get them in the right mindset of ensuring, hey, you know what, we can still do this, right? And you're minimizing discounts if you can, because it's never good for the business, like I mentioned earlier. So let me pause for a second. Does that make sense? If it makes sense, type in yes. If you have questions on that, go and type in your question. I think a really, really important thing to think about is, like, how can you best arm your team to negotiate effectively? And whether it's COVID-19 or if it's any time, I think understanding negotiation is part of life, okay? And it really starts from the get-go. So, and I mentioned it earlier, when you think about teaching your team how to negotiate, it's not simply what do you do to negotiate the T and C's, right? The terms and conditions of the contract, or negotiating the comp plan, right? And it's really important. It starts from the very, very get-go, okay? And from the very get-go, like when you hire someone new, how are you indoctrinating them into the culture? How do you negotiate? That's very, very important. This kind of piggybacks off of Daniel's question here, which is, how does setting expectations affect leadership and negotiation, right? So early on, if you think about this, right, when they're getting indoctrinated into, like, what can they do from a negotiation perspective? That's important to understand. What can they do? Like what type of rules are allowed? What are the rules of engagement when they are negotiating with a prospect with its deal size perspective, pricing discounts? What can they give away? What can they not give away? Give them crystal clear clarity from the beginning. That's really, really important. This allows you to draw the line in the sand for your team, right? And that starts from the very beginning when they get hired, okay? And then, when you have that, that's really important. And then what you need to do is you have to really start indoctrinating them even more, right? Really showcasing and helping them understand other parts of the value proposition your company offers. All right. So if you offer, a product or service, making sure, they have a full understanding, not from you, other department heads or people within the company, how operations work or service or customer success, all the onboarding, all those things. Are they fully indoctrinated so they feel super confident in the product or service that the company delivers? That's really important, right? And then are you teaching fundamentals about sales negotiation that goes from the very get-go? Okay. Like if you think about this, the best salespeople, right, who usually are the best negotiators, are usually the most confident. And confidence doesn't come overnight. It comes from, having proper knowledge, repetition, and mastery of fundamentals. And if you start training them well up front from the discovery, from if they're doing a full cycle, from the outreach to the discovery to the demo, to presenting, whatever you're doing, to asking for the business, are they properly trained the whole way, right? And are you consistently helping them develop that skill? It's so important, because if you don't consistently develop that skill, then ultimately that skill will fall away, okay? But also, when you give them clear expectations when they're negotiating, they know when to bring things to the table to you so you can work with them to help them, like negotiate a deal, up or down, okay? So it's really, really important. So that's fundamental of helping them up front, all through the process, train, onboard them, give them clear expectations so they feel great actually negotiating, okay? Very important. Let me look at this question here. See, once you have your expectation, how do you ensure your team is reaching them without being naggy? Okay, so and Elizabeth, from your expectations perspective, is it performance expectations, or what are they able to negotiate to as an expectation? I'm gonna wait for you to answer that if you don't mind. I just want to make sure I answer it properly. Performance. Okay, all right. So there's a little bit of performance management here. All right, I love performance management. Okay, so I have a little bit different philosophy than most people, right? In terms of performance management and expectations, right? I believe many people lead people to a quota, right? They lead people to a quota, say, hey, listen, like your goal is this, you need to hit this, or you're put on a PIP, a performance plan, which that's okay. What you usually find is people perform to the level they expect of themselves, right? So I like to raise it, right? And to me, my mindset's always been very simple. The quota is the minimum expectation, right? And their goal should be much higher. Okay. So for example, right, like, at my last company, right, the quota was like pretty high, right? And President's Club was even higher. So I would lead them towards President's Club, right? But more importantly, what was really important for leading people is I made sure I was crystal clear with exactly what their personal professional goals are. And this is what's really important to understand: what intrinsically motivates your team individually, and also extrinsically. So for example, intrinsically, like what drives them, right? What makes them get out of bed each day, right? Those with high intrinsic motivation will typically take more action than somebody else, okay? Extrinsic is external stuff. So they want to achieve, the top award, President's Club, Pinnacle Award. They want to buy a new car. They want to buy a new house. They want to make, $250,000. Those are all extrinsic things, okay? You want to understand all those things for each rep. That's really important, right? And if you think about this, usually if people have those type of bigger goals, they're usually up here. And then usually quota is like, here, hopefully it's further away. So when you're leading your team, it's never about leading to the performance of a quota. It's about leading them to their big goals. And if you can lead them to their big goals, right, even if they fall short, which, it is what it is, if they fall short between somewhere between there, they're still far ahead of beating their number. Okay. One of the ways, I'll give you a good example. So when I took over my last market, right? This is 4.5, 5 years ago. And, we would have on average about, 10% of the market hit President's Club. Okay. And, and there are people that probably hit regardless. Okay. I came with that shifting in mindset, not leading towards quota, but leading towards their big personal and professional goals, intrinsic and extrinsic goals. And as a result, by leading them that way, the following year, I sent 17% of my team to that President's Club, right? And the year after that, I sent 30%, right? And I sent more than anybody else in the whole company. And the company is like a $7 billion company. So, and I share that with you. It's not to brag, but purely because when you lead people towards their personal professional goals at the highest level, quota just happens, right? As a result, right? Or you're more likely to hit a quota, right? Is it easy? No, not at all. I'm not saying it's ever easy, but when you have that shift in mindset, then it's not about nagging them. It's about, hey, working together as a collaboration, like the word we used earlier, collaborating with them to lead them to achieve that overall goal, right? And that's really, really important, okay? And when you start out that shift in mindset, you start realizing it's not necessarily an internal negotiation, but you're now collaborating, working together, saying, hey, how can I best help you achieve $250,000 this year? How can I best help you achieve, the Pinnacle Club Award? How can I best help you so you feel fulfilled and you create that work-life balance that you want? And when you leave them that way, the magic happens as a result. Yeah. So think about this, right? When they hit personal goals, that's their goals, right? That's their goals, not the company goals, right? And hopefully, and here's the thing: if they have really low goals, you have a bigger problem in your hands. It means you probably have an issue with hiring, right? So if you're, because you can have some people which they just have really low goals, right? And people will have an upper limit threshold. And what that means is in their mental mind, they have a certain threshold they're going to perform to. Okay. And people typically perform to their personal identity themselves. So for example, I'll give you a good example. Okay. So, if I had a rep, and this rep was like super skilled, super talented, and his best income year, right, was $45,000 before he came to work for me. Okay. And, I always want him to set a higher goal. Okay. So his goal, he's essentially, right? Well, his reality, if they made $60,000, they'd be on performance plan on my team, right? That means they're completely missing goal, right? Because my average rep made $110,000. So, what working with him, right? I do my best to help it. And one year he had a bang out year, and he made like 130 grand in like 9 months. Absolutely crushed it. Okay, for his own standards. And as a result of that, he basically stopped working because his bar is so low. So if you are hiring the right profile, it's really critical you hire someone who has a really high upper limit threshold, right? As high as possible. And then as they progress through, they want to keep doing more and more and more. And they really need that intrinsic motivation, right? So for example, one person I had interviewed, and he's superstar. And one of the ways he answered, I asked him, hey, what drives you in the morning? What gets you out of bed in the morning, right? And I knew I liked him based off his answer. He said he woke up. He's like, I wake up every single day, and I feel like I have to prove myself to the world. And that was very powerful for me because it's an internal drive. That internal drive is very different, right? Because at the end of the day, once they get that nice car, a house, etc., are they going to be motivated still? Don't know, right? So the intrinsic part is super important, right? For him was that, right? For me, I know for me, I'm about legacy, right? So I wake up to drive legacy, right? I wake up to achieve legacy, right? And if you don't know what your team's is, you got to dig deeper, asking more questions, okay? So great question, Elizabeth. Great question. All right, so if you're seeing some people jump on, type in whatever other questions you may have in there as well. And let me take a look at some of these other things too. Okay, I think this is a good question that I want to make sure I hit on too. How do you empower your team? How do you empower your team? And this is where, it's a little bit of a little slippery slope here. When you want to empower your team, what I find a lot of times, I see kind of two types of managers, right? Kind of overgeneralize a little bit. I see the one who was promoted from a sales professional to be a sales leader, and they want to own every single deal, right? Like they want to jump in, they want to control every single deal. They want the ins and outs. They're basically micromanaging the rep. They want to be part of the process. They want to see every single email. They want to do all these things. They want the rep to run everything by them before they contact that prospect. That's very dangerous, right? Because, or even a very, even a lesser version of that. That's very dangerous because that allows people that basically trains reps to not think for themselves, right? They're not able to go out and make their own decisions. They don't feel comfortable with it. They just don't have confidence in themselves. They feel like they need you. And that's essentially, it's kind of like, it's like having training wheels at all times on the bike. And if you are the training wheels, it's like they're going to always depend on you. Okay, so that they'll bring every deal to you. Say, hey, what do you think about this? They're not confident in themselves, right? Your goal your goal should be to maximize the skill of your team. So, which means build their confidence up, right? And that's where I mentioned earlier, where it's really critical that you start off with really clear guidelines. What's okay for them, right? What's okay for them to negotiate down to if they need to, right? What can they give away, et cetera, that the company is comfortable with to have them make that call. Now, obviously, if they have to do it every single time, then that's not good. They probably need more training, develop more confidence building, right? But they need to know where the line is, help them establish that line, okay? And then when they come to the table and they say, hey, listen, I need your help to negotiate this deal down. As a leader, what you don't want to do is like say, hey, where do they want to close this deal? Oh, they need 30% off. Done. Let me get that approved. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is train your rep how to think. And what I mean by that is, so when your rep comes to you, say, hey, listen, we need X% off, or we need to give X away. You say, okay, great. Let's walk through the account. Help me understand, who have you been meeting with, right? Make sure it's properly qualified, right? Start asking, hey, what's most important to them? They hit all the key points that you need to know, right? You want to make sure that the account's fully vetted properly. So when they're thinking, then this way they can think for themselves, and they come to the table prepared, right? Hey, it's like, hey, what do they need? Okay, they need X to get closed. Okay, cool. Who else is involved? Well, it's just them. Okay, are they the ultimate decision maker? Well, I'm pretty sure. Okay, pretty sure or 100% sure, right? Who else could be involved, right? Like, did you ask them, if we do this, can we get this deal done? So you're crystal clear. You are purely just teaching your rep how to think. So this way, when you get to the table of having negotiate down, it's properly vetted, right? And ultimately, if you need to get someone higher up above that, then if you need to get someone higher up to help negotiate that deal, then make sure that you also vet it properly. So when you roll to your VP, it's like, hey, you know what? I've already vetted it. Here's what we need. Can we get this done? And they can be very quick with saying yes or no, to get that deal done. So it's very, very important with a proper vetting of deals like that. Let's see. Let's take a look. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Marcus. How are you? I'm good, man. Good. I'm Murtaza Ali, and I love your voice and how you're speaking, and you throw your voice. So I like that. I'm observing you and I'm learning from your voice and communication, how you communicate, right? So I just love that, man. Thank you very much, Marcus. I don't have a particular question for you, but I took this time to thank you for today, your great content and to be honest, I love your communication style.
I appreciate
Thank you very much. I will connect. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. For your reference, Murtaza Ali.
Hey, Murtaza. Pleasure, my man. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, keep up the great work, man. Thank you. Take care. Yeah.
Yeah,
bye.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks. Carry on. Thanks. Bye.
Well, what's interesting is, and I think, Murtaza, you actually bring up a good point, right? Your ability to communicate in a deal is absolutely vital, okay? And this may shock some of you, right? So English is actually my second language, and I actually grew up with a speech impediment, right? So I didn't start speaking until I was 4 years old, okay? So, and what happens is, when you start learning how to communicate properly and effectively communicate an idea, this will allow you to sell better and negotiate better. And that's really, really vital, right? So as a leader, it's the same thing for a leader, right? So your ability to communicate to your team allows you to, convince your team to do more things, if you will. But also on top of that, when you're working with prospects, your ability to communicate with the prospect allows you to, negotiate better, have a more clear message. And when you have a really clear message, this allows you to provide more value to your prospect faster, okay? That's really important. So Elizabeth, thank you as well. I appreciate that too. Thank you. Okay, so type in whatever questions you got. Let me take a look. Take a look here. Okay, so another question I think would be really, really important is when should you step in for a deal as a sales leader, right? So say, for example, you've already established parameters, okay, for your team, which says, hey, listen, you are able to negotiate down to this level. Aside from that, you got to bring it to me, right? Cool. Okay. All right. So when should you step in? You should step in, especially, okay, we got 3 minutes. All right. So really quick. So you should step in if they are brand new and they haven't been properly trained yet. You definitely should step in. Okay. If it's a massive deal that you don't want to lose, obviously, you also want to make sure you don't step in. Now, what you don't want to do is, let's say you're on a Zoom call and you're working through negotiation. It's not that big of a deal, right? And even if you're behind or not, if you step in when they should be taking over, you can hurt their development. And I've seen that happen where you become the training wheels to that rep, and that really makes them struggle to actually, get better at the end of the day. So very, very, very important. So, okay, cool. All right. So we probably should jump on to the main panel. So thank you very much for jumping on, and I will see you all in the next session, which is in the main session area. All right. See you guys in a bit.